Welcome to the Ed Newsstand podcast. I'm your host, Troy Reynolds. This is Season 3, Episode 19 of the podcast. This week's episode is entitled Nearpod Whiteboard Live Features. At the end of January, Nearpod introduced two brand new features to their platform. That is the annotation tool and the whiteboard tool. Meaning as you are delivering lessons using Nearpod to your students, you can annotate on top of slides or bring up a brand new blank whiteboard as you're teaching. These are two brand new powerful tools to the Nearpod platform. I'm going to show you what these two tools look like while using a computer and how to integrate them if you are delivering lessons using your iPad. Let's dive in. Continuing our look at whiteboards for your classroom, this week I want to look at a couple of the new updates to Nearpod, the annotation tool and the whiteboard tool that have become available. If you're not sure what Nearpod is, you can revisit a couple of my previous newsletters. One is from January 17th of last year. This will talk to you about what Nearpod is, how you can create lessons within Nearpod, and some of the various resources that already are available within Nearpod if you have a paid subscription. You can just download these and use them on the go without having to create your own lessons. These are already previously made. If you are a Google user, my newsletter from the 24th of January talks about how to use Google and Nearpod integration together to make utilizing your Nearpod lessons or your Google Slides a lot easier when incorporating those into your presentations with your students. Within the newsletter this week, you can see that down at the bottom, I have a little demonstration of the Annotate and Whiteboard tool, so you can click on this computer screen. It will take you to this GIF and make it a lot larger for you to be able to see exactly how the two tools work. You can also watch the YouTube videos that Nearpod has created on their annotation and their whiteboard tool. You can also, right here in the middle of the newsletter, click on Nearpod Updates and be taken to the Nearpod blog, where you will be able to see all of the Nearpod updates from this year currently or from the school year from when it started way back in September. All of these blog posts have links and videos and other resources to them. So make sure to check out this if you want to bookmark this. Just if you're using Chrome, just simply click on the star in the top of the Omnibox and it will bookmark, and you can revisit this whenever you need to check out any of the new updates to Nearpod. A couple of things I want to mention before we get into the demonstration of this. First, the annotation tool within Nearpod is only available for Premium Plus and District licenses. So if you do not pay for Nearpod and are only using the free version of Nearpod, you're not going to have access to the annotation tool. Secondly, if you do use the whiteboard tool, that will work with any free or paid version of the Nearpod that you might be using. So let's dive into the tools, and I'm going to show you how these tools work both on a computer and on an iPad. So you're going to go to Nearpod and you're going to open up a lesson. Once your lesson is open, you'll see a couple of the tools on the main screen. You'll see the annotation tool down here with a little pen, and then up in the top you'll see the whiteboard tool right here. So let's look at the annotation tool first. If you click on the annotation tool, you can see that it brings up a little bit of an overlay on your screen. Over your slide, you will see that you have a yellow border with a little yellow X in the corner. This is your annotation tool. And then down here are the actual tools that you can use within your presentation. So you've got your pen tool and all of the colors that go along with that. If I choose green, and then I can actually increase or decrease the size of my pen right here. And then I can just start to draw on my screen. If I choose, this is the highlighter tool, I have the same colors available. And I can increase or decrease the size of the highlighter. So I can highlight the highlighter there. This is my text box. Again, same colors. I can choose this. I can increase the size of my font if I want to. I add my text. I can change the size of the text box, and I can grab this over here and I can move my text box around, or I can delete the text box altogether. And then the last tool that I have is my eraser tool. And I can erase these here, or if I want, I can choose to delete the entire slide. So this will erase everything that I had previously done. Now, if I write with my annotation tool on the slide and I close out of the annotation tool, my annotations are gone. If I click on the annotation again, the annotations come back. So the overlay stays there within the annotation tool as long as you are in that slide. If I go to the next slide and I bring up the annotation tool, The annotation for this slide is brand new. So the annotation only stays on the current slide for which you have tried to annotate. If I want to use the whiteboard tool, I open up the whiteboard at the top. I have the same tools down here on the bottom that I had in my annotation tool. Same colors, same increase of the size of the pen. The difference in the whiteboard tool versus the annotation tool is if I close out of my whiteboard tool and I go to the next page and I open up my whiteboard again, the whiteboard, everything stays on the whiteboard as long as you are moving through the presentation. The annotation is specific to each slide, but the whiteboard is specific to the entire presentation. So the whiteboard just stays, everything that you've done on the whiteboard just stays there while you are working through your presentation, which means that every time you're done, you need to click on the trash can and clear and erase everything that is on the whiteboard. If I bring up my annotation tool is clean. Now let's take a look at the Nearpod tool on your iPad. Okay, so now I have opened up my iPad and I am using the Nearpod app. And I'm going to open up a presentation in the Nearpod app. So you will see that I'm in my Nearpod app, but I don't have any of these features that I talked about. There is no annotation tool and there is no whiteboard tool on my iPad within the Nearpod app. What you need to do is you need to close out of the Nearpod app, and then you need to delete the app. Then you need to go into Safari right here, and you need to load up Nearpod in Safari. Because Safari is a desktop browser now based on iOS 14 on the iPad, you can actually utilize the whiteboard and annotation features on your iPad if you use Nearpod through the browser. So let's take a look at this. So now I'm in Nearpod on my iPad using Safari to access Nearpod. If I had the app installed and I went to Nearpod, it would automatically try to open the app. That's why you need to delete the app. So now that I'm in Safari using Nearpod, you can see that I have the annotation tool right here, and I have my open whiteboard up here at the top. So if I click on the annotation tool, I have my annotation tool, and I have the same tools that I had in the browser on my computer as I do now on my iPad, so I can access all of these different things. I can close out of my annotation tool, I can open up my whiteboard, and again, the same tools. And it works the same way. So I annotated on this screen, I go to my next screen, and when I open up my annotation tool, the annotation tool is clean. If I open up my whiteboard, the whiteboard actually still has stuff on it. Now, let's take a look at what students see on their end. So as you can see, I've joined Nearpod over here in my browser. Over here on the right-hand side is my iPad. So this is in my browser what the students will see. Now, as the teacher, I bring up the annotation tool, and then I can start to write. Students will see the same thing in their browser as they are following along as I see on my iPad. Now, if I'm a teacher accessing Nearpod on a computer or an iPad, and I'm a student using the iPad app, let me show you what that looks like. Now I've logged into Nearpod in my browser again on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side is my iPad and what students see. So if I'm going in my browser and I click my annotation tool, so I have logged out of my iPad and logged into the computer, because this lesson was saved, my annotation stuff still shows up on my slide. However, on the student side, when they are using the Nearpod app, none of those annotation tools show up within the app. Now, if I go and I look in the browser, you can see now that I'm in a browser on my iPad, and you can see that the annotation tools show up. So as I write, those annotation tools show up in my iPad, but not within the Nearpod app. So there you have it. Make sure when you are using Nearpod, if you want to use the annotation tools or the whiteboard tools within Nearpod, you have to be using a browser, whether you are on a computer or whether you are on an iPad. Do not use the iPad app if you want students to be able to see your annotation tools or your whiteboard tools, or you want to be able to move around the room and use the annotation and whiteboard tools on your iPad. You have to use Safari, or you have to use another browser on the iPad to access these tools. I hope you find a lot of uses for the whiteboard tools and the annotation tools within Nearpod. I think it's a great addition to the software and will actually just make delivering your lessons that much better to your students. That does it for this episode of the Ed Newsstand podcast. I really appreciate you listening to the podcast or watching the video version on YouTube because I know your time is valuable. You can check out more Nearpod updates by going to nearpod.com/blog and clicking on Updates. Please check me out on social media. You can follow me on Twitter @ReynoldsTroy or on Instagram @ednewsstand. If you're listening on any podcast platform and would like to hear more, please like and subscribe to receive updates and have any new episodes automatically downloaded for you. You can also revisit my previous episodes on any major podcasting platform like Spotify, Anchor.fm, Apple Podcasts, or iHeartRadio. If you'd like to download my app to have my podcast and newsletters right on your smart device, please check it out at ednewsstand.glideapp.io and save it to your home screen. If you don't want the app but would like to check out my resources, please visit my website at ednewsstand.weebly.com. This is Troy Reynolds, and this is the Ed Newsstand Podcast. Hoping you were able to take away at least one idea for your classroom. Please be safe. Until next time.